Hello, everyone. Welcome to another episode of Two Guys Drunk History. I'm Evan O'Neill.
I'm Thomas Lipsy.
And today we're going to be talking about the history of the Legend of Zelda. It first came out in February of 1986 for the Nintendo Entertainment System. It's a pretty good game.
Pretty fun. I want to play just a little bit, like a tiny little demo whenever they had it in the stores. Or did they have demos in the store back then? I remember playing a segment of it somewhere.
I don't know, maybe. But I grew up with it. It was actually one of the first games I ever played. Was on the NES. And, man, it was hard. Because it did not tell you nothing. And you start the game and then... I guess you're just supposed to figure out that you're supposed to walk into a cave where some old guy says, "It's dangerous to go alone. Take this," and gives you a wooden sword. And flash forward, 31 years? And we just had the release of Legend of Zelda Breath of the Wild for the Nintendo Switch. So it is definitely one of Nintendo's flagship franchises. It's also one of the most popular names in popular culture. Video gaming, obviously. It has a dozen or so iterations of the game, continuations of the story, spin-offs, TV shows. It was pretty good. My favorite one growing up was the Majora's Mask for the Nintendo 64. I was a little nerd, and I bought, I think it was the Prima Games strategy guide or something like that before it came out. I read through it, and it was in such excitement. I wasn't able to get it. I think it came out in October of that year, but I had to wait till Christmas until I got it. It was also one of the very first. That was one of the first games to make use of the Nintendo's expansion pack. It's a very beloved franchise, whether you like the original, whether you like Ocarina of Time, Twilight Princess, hell, maybe even A Link to the Past. It has been a very well-made game series with essentially the same plot every time. You are the hero, and you have to defeat usually Ganon, Ganondorf, Agaheim, or
some kind of evil incarnate in the series somewhere.
As it gets older, more and more of it is explained, but even less of it given in full detail. So it's an interesting thing.
I remember one Christmas, I think I was around 7 or 8 years old. My first Zelda copy was Ocarina of Time.
Yeah.
And I played it till the point where you get to the water temple. I mean, at that age, I was stumped.
Yeah.
I didn't know about having to change certain water levels in the temple to reach certain rooms, and it took me a couple of years later just to figure that out.
Yeah, that water temple's nefarious, man. People.
Yeah, it was a pain in the ass until you finally beat Morpha and you got the long shot version of the hook shot, and then you go to the Shadow Temple and it just bounced on from there. It got really heated.
Yeah, I remember my mom was real cool about it because she had obviously bought it for me. But she sat there with me while I played it for a good bit and was like helping me write down some things to remember, like the songs and all that stuff. Now, mind you, we didn't really realize at the time that you could just go to the menu screen and look up the instructions for each song. But it was a big deal. Since then, I went back and I played The Adventure of Link, which was more of an RPG than a typical Zelda game. Like, I'm the kind of person that I feel whenever somebody says Zelda is an RPG, I'm like, no, just the one. Just the one. The rest of them, the rest of them are adventure games. I mean, I sat there. I played a lot of A Link Between Worlds whenever that came out for the 3DS. Like, I played it and beat it, and I played it and beat it one more time, and then I tried to do a 3-heart run, and I got a good ways through it, and I just kind of lost interest. Not that it was too hard or anything. But it's an adventure game in my opinion. They all typically tend to be centered around music, around relationships, trust, and stuff like that. I mean, everybody knows who the protagonist is, Zelda.
Yeah.
What if Zelda was a girl?
Well, the first game in the timeline, so to speak, was
Skyward Sword, which came out in 2011.
That was the base of the whole game.
Yeah, back then the Hylians were god people or something.
Yeah.
They lived in the skies.
They lived
and
in
flew on
higher,
birds.
they were higher beings, and they had to descend to the land below using these birds.
Yeah.
And I don't know the name of these birds, but you see on, let's say...
Koroks or something like that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And you see on Link's shield, the Hyrulean shield, that has a little certain
that red bird. Yeah,
on the shield, and that's what it resembles.
I think it's important to note that whenever you descend to the earth below in Skyward Sword, there are like remnants of some pretty advanced technologies. I don't know if it was supposed to be people that ran it or if it was like robots. Alright, so Ganon formed well after. Like, the original enemy in Skyward Sword is a thing called Demise.
Yeah.
And I think it's just supposed to be the balance to the gods. Just supposed to be the darkness. Body comes afterwards. He appears in Minish Cap in the Four Swords Adventures.
Oh.
After that is Ocarina of Time. Ocarina of Time, Ganondorf becomes Ganon. Ganondorf was a man from the
desert.
East. Yeah, from the desert, and it's primarily he's from a clan of primarily women. They only have a male born every 100 years.
Every 100 years, and this male in particular, Ganon,
he had a thirst for power.
Searched for power, and then he ended up getting his hands on the Triforce of Power, and that way he was able to slay the land and become the king of Hyrule.
Yeah, and in the story of Ocarina of Time, Link is a child living amongst the Kokiri forest sprites, children. He later learns that he is not a Kokiri, but he's actually a Hylian. So he can't remain there forever because he won't be a child forever. So he goes out on his quest. His quest has become the hero of time. I'm sure you've played Ocarina of Time before. You know the history of that, of how he gathered the 7 sages to help banish Ganondorf after Ganon transforms into Ganondorf, or to banish Ganon after Ganondorf transforms into Ganon.
Yeah.
They banish him. And from there, the story kind of splits into 3 different directions. There's a possibility that Link, as an adult, did not defeat Ganon and Ganondorf, which leads into a chain of games. Also, at the same time, we have to consider the fact that he went back to being a child, because he was the hero of time. He was basically time traveling. And from there, that leads into a series of games, including Majora's Mask, Twilight Princess. And then there's a third timeline where adult Link stays around as an adult, dies of old age. Later on, Hyrule becomes flooded, and we enter the Wind Waker and its spin-offs timelines.
Then it goes to other Four Sword series. The Phantom Glass, one of my favorite personal DS Zelda games franchise. And the Spirit Tracks, I haven't played that one. But
that was a weird one. It was
a weird one.
It was very weird. It was train based. It was weird. You do see the evolution of species throughout the game. You see the Zora go from being fish people to bird people, the Ruto.
Yeah.
I think the Gorons pretty much stay the same.
Yeah, they do. But they're very scarce.
Yeah.
And they become traveling salesmen.
Yeah, and Wind Waker, because the earth is covered in water,
so
and
they
they
have
are
no
rock
other
people.
choice. But I did love the trading between the Gorons just to get the plasma. The plaza and Wind Waker shopping area just.
Get it set up. Wind Waker is a great epic game. A lot to do. You can dump a lot of time into it. Great soundtrack. Still lightly musical based, whereas in previous games like Ocarina of Time and Majora's Mask, you're playing an instrument. In Wind Waker, you are conducting the wind and telling it what to do, basically controlling the weather.
Which direction to blow.
Which makes sense in like a water world type situation.
That was the only game that you just don't want to fast travel anywhere, because you did have that kind of mechanic
Yeah.
in the game. But even with Wind Waker, the graphics, the scenery, you just want to sail there. Even though it's like halfway across the map.
And the map was huge. It took a while to traverse from one side to the other, but the map is split up into a grid, and you want to sit there and explore each of the areas.
Yeah.
You might have to come back after you have a map or an item to help you get to that area.
Yeah.
I always enjoyed the sunken fortresses.
Yeah.
Where you'd have to kind of like patrol around the fortress, shooting at the cannons and shooting at the moblins and shit.
Each cannon you destroy, or if you destroy all cannons in a certain area,
it'll give you a treasure chest.
And like each grid was different. Like this one had a huge octo, and you had to be trapped in his whirlpool and throw a boomerang at his eyes to kill it, to get a heart or whatever.
Yeah, it was a fun game.
And
it was innovative.
Either that or it had like a treasure, and I spent a lot of time on it.
Yeah.
Another game I spent a lot of time on. If the child was successful after Ocarina of Time, you turn into a child again, you go to Majora's Mask.
Majora's Mask is like an important game to understand where it fits in the timeline. Alright, so Link reverts back into being a child, and he goes back to the Lost Woods to find a friend. So maybe it's Saria, his Kokiri friend, maybe it's Navi, his fairy friend. But the important thing to know there is that you can't go through the Lost Woods without a ferry, according to Ocarina of Time logic, because you will become lost and you'll die. So Link spends the majority of that adventure in a place called Termina, which is, I believe, a Spanish word for the end. And that's a wonderful game because it's dark. It's the darkest one at the time. Music's great. There's no perfect ending. You can't sit there and make everybody happy.
You can do like the little mini quest to marry
Anju and Cafe, yeah.
But the problem with Cafe, he's cursed and was turned into a child.
Yeah, so
like 3 days before his marriage. And you have to figure that out before, like, and it leads all the way to like the last 5 minutes.
Yeah,
before the moon crashes down to solve that.
Yeah, if I remember correctly, to properly do Anju and Cafe's quest, you have to meet Cafe, you have to meet Cafe at midnight. No, Anju at midnight on the first day. You have to meet Anju at midnight on the first day, so she can give you the letter. Well, if you're busy doing that, then you're missing the opportunity to stop a robber from robbing the bomb shop people, and so you can't complete their quest on that.
What you do that first, actually. You stop the robber, then you go talk to those already?
No, because if you stop the robber, then you can't go to his hideout later on.
Okay.
Yeah, there's no perfect ending. And even then, even if you do go with like the best ending where you try to appease as many people as possible, there's still some lost characters like the Deku Butler's son, who's stuck in between worlds before you walk out of the clock
dude,
town.
That thing is like damned before he even knows it.
Oh yeah,
that's a sad story.
That's sad.
I love how chaotic this game is. Thank you, TJ.
Yeah,
and that's the whole purpose of it, because you only have 3 days to do whatever there is in the plot.
But after that, you're led to believe that Link would return to the Lost Woods where he dies, because in Twilight Princess, you were taught ancient sword techniques by a Stalfos, and there are ancient sword techniques that only Link could have known. So I think it's meant to make you think that Link survived in the woods until he was an adult and then died, and then his possessed skeleton body sits there and teaches the new hero.
That's like the lore, isn't it? It's like if you're a child, you get lost in the woods, you turn into a skull kid.
Yeah.
You lost, you died in the woods, you turned into a Stalfos.
Yeah.
Something else I wanted to point out on Majora's Mask was this one part. It's one of my favorite. Was fighting the aliens. At Lon Ranch.
At the Lon Ranch.
That shit. But back to Twilight Princess.
Twilight Princess was a difficult game. It was dark, but it wasn't dark in the way that Majora's Mask was dark. They made it in response to the fan reaction to Majora's Mask. It was a little bit more realistic.
Huge open areas.
Yeah, huge open areas. Innovative use of controls for the Wii at the time. Now, the sword swinging was not as good as it is in, say, Skyward Sword. But there were some pretty cool things. I can think of, like, that spinner top that you stood on.
Yeah.
And, like, it was really only good for, like, one area.
Well, my favorite was, like, you can be on, is it Epona or Epona?
Epona, yeah.
Epona. And you can throw your big-ass ball and chain.
Yeah, that was cool.
And you can go, and it respawns to enemies. Each time you go into a big field, you can fight these guys horseback throughout, like, one field to the other.
Yeah.
And I always love doing that, just going to the field, you can just beat guys' asses. But,
yeah.
My favorite thing about it was the plot itself. That was, I think, one of the best those stories, in my opinion.
Yeah, it was a very interesting plot. Going back and forth between the Twilight Realm. I feel like
Very dark.
Yeah, I feel like the end,
So
Ganon's castle, fighting Puppet Ganon, then fighting Ganon.
Beast Ganon.
Yeah, Beast Ganon.
Then it goes to the field where
then you fight Ganondorf on horseback.
Yeah.
Before you finally have a 1-on-1 duel with him.
Yeah.
It was, to be honest, it was a little drawn out, but it was worth it because it was good. The only thing more comparable, I think, is doing that epic front flip skull dive on Ganondorf in Wind Waker. And, yeah,
well, you technically did the same thing, and
I think that's like the way to beat him is that you got to stick him in the head.
Well, he always had that weakness because something about when Ganon's banished in Ocarina of Time, he was in the, I forgot what it was called.
Shadow Realm.
Was it the Shadow Realm?
Yeah, Shadow Realm.
And he somehow made his way an embodiment of this weird power. Like, he wasn't even a figure. He was just this floating space.
Yeah.
It made his way up to the Twilight Realm, and one person, I forgot his name, he's a bit of an antagonist.
The King. The Twilight King.
He wasn't Twilight King, he was just some peasant.
Oh. Okay.
But he took Ganon's power, like a sample of it, and took over the Twilight Kingdom.
Yeah.
Cursed the Twilight Princess, and made mishap all over the country.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. So...
Well, Link was a wolf. You didn't mention that, did you?
Oh, yeah, well, he turns into a wolf in
Well,
that
that's
game.
because of, what's his name? I forget his fucking...
I don't remember either. But moving into the Link's unsuccessful timeline, that's where you get games like The Legend of Zelda, then The Adventure of Link, A Link to the Past, A Link Between Worlds. And those are all roughly, essentially the same kind of map. They're all, very plain. I feel like the better version, like, imagine if A Link to the Past was the first one in the series instead of the third one. Because A Link to the Past is a solid game to this day. Completely solid side-scroller. And then A Link Between Worlds is just a different take on that 20-something years later. But those storylines all involve Ganon in some capacity as Ganon, not Ganondorf. Those are Beast Ganons, or the Evil King, is what they call him.
Yeah.
Throughout the plot of these games, for the most part, you have to rescue Zelda because she also has one of the Triforces. She has
Power of Wisdom.
Yeah, Triforce of Wisdom. Link has always had the Triforce of Courage, and then Ganondorf, his iterations have always had the power piece of the Triforce.
Mm-hmm.
They're a fantastic series, fantastic games. They're really fun. Man, I remember playing Ocarina of Time, and I went back to the Kokiri village as an adult.
Yeah.
And that little section where you have to, like, crawl through the hole,
Yeah.
and then you got to run around the boulders. Right in front of that, there's like a weird series of fences.
Yeah.
It's supposed to be like a little maze or something. You're supposed to just sit there and chop
Yeah, I know
signs and
yeah.
stuff. Well, I found out if you're an adult Link and you stand on the fence and you do backflips, you'll always land on the next little fence. And whenever you do, it gives you a rupee.
Yeah.
And I thought that was weird. I'm like,
Well, the same thing as a kid in the little wildflower area. If you jump on each stone, you get
yeah.
5 rubies.
The games have always had a ton of weird extras. From like Majora's Mask, wearing the Gossip Stone mask and talking to the different cows in the holes. Twilight Princess had some weird ones with petting the kitties.
Yeah, well, when you're a wolf form, there's a point in the game where you can turn back into regular human Link and wolf Link anytime you want. And at night, when everybody's not scared of you in town, you can interact with the cats and dogs that are scattered around the city.
You know, the only thing I didn't... Well, alright, there's a couple of things I didn't like about Twilight Princess. But I didn't like the fucking rupee armor, where you're like invincible, but it consumes your rupees.
Yeah.
I just felt like that was stupid.
I mean, that's why you...
Give me another Big Goron sword.
Yeah. Yeah. I didn't use a rupee armor myself.
Just
There's always this one spot where you get like 200 rupees and that lasts a while.
Yeah. Big Goron's knife sword quest was kind of hard.
After the Twilight Princess, you have another 4 swords series. Then you have Hyrule Warriors, which is kind of like, what is that?
Dynasty Warriors.
Dynasty Warriors game based.
Yeah, it's just a button masher game.
I didn't play it. It looked cool, but
It's got some weird stuff going on. Different timelines interacting with each other.
yeah.
Different characters interacting with each other. It was the first. Oh no, I can't say that because they had like Wanda Gamelon and those Sony CDI or Philips CDI games or whatever. You know what I'm talking about, where they look like cartoon episodes. But it was the first official Zelda game that was non-canon.
Then they have this what's called post-convergence. And that's where we have, in this timeline, being Kid Link successful after Twilight Princess and 4 Swords and Hyrule Warriors. You have post-convergence to Breath of the Wild.
Yeah, and that is a completely crazy game in and of itself. There's a ton to do. It's pretty much, I think somebody described it yesterday, I think. They said, whenever they were making Ocarina of Time, they were like, in 20 years, what's this going to be like, you know?
Yeah.
And that's what Breath of the Wild is. It's Ocarina of Time, but for modern times, where it's a big open world, apparently you can spend like 7 hours exploring just the open air, the first area, which is like a tutorial area.
But it's supposedly the size of 4 Skyrim maps.
Yeah, it's supposed to be big, and there's a lot of a lot of challenges to do. A lot of things unlock. Weapons have durability and stuff like that.
I'd like to play it one day for sure.
Oh yeah.
And if you boys want to, hook us up.
Help us up, hook us up. We'll do a 100% playthrough.
I mean, we may have to borrow a game, but we'll promise to give it back.
Oh yeah. We want to do it. We want to play it. We want to see what it's about because it looks good. It looks like there's a lot of stuff to do.
Oh yeah. Interchangeable weapons. You don't have to use a sword.
Yeah.
Interchangeable armors. There's so many different mix and match you can use. Different ways to fight enemies using elements against them.
Yeah.
I saw one donkey video where he took the balloon type things and he put it on a raft and it was a floating raft.
Yeah. I really want to sit there and
you
mess around with
it.
Yeah. Sit there and play with the physics engine. But I think we kind of covered our bases as far as what we know. Legend of Zelda is a very important series. It's super wildly popular. People get tattoos of it.
Yeah.
You know.
I mean, we have a tattoo of it.
Yeah, we both have Zelda tattoos. It's a franchise that has really, really carried its weight in popular culture.
It's important to. I feel like it was a big part of my childhood.
Definitely. Definitely. I dumped hundreds of hours into just the 64 games.
Oh, yeah. Just being at that time. That and Conker's Bad Fur Day, but we're not talking about that.
Yeah, we're not talking about that. Maybe one day we'll do the history of Rare. So with that, we want to say thank you for watching. Please like, comment, subscribe, share, show your friends, tell your friends, tell us if you like this. We're going to do some more. Tell us if you like some format changes or anything like that. But anyways, I'm Evan O'Neill.
And I'm Thomas Lipsy.
And
Cheers.
cheers.
This has been a Two Guys production.